blockbuster, and then spawned these sequels.
Right.
The first one was so grassroots that all of you were probably like, hey, this is just a really cool project to be involved with. And then it blew up out of nowhere. So not out of nowhere, out of being a good movie. And then it must be so much fun to go back and work with everybody. So because it seems like a good crew and a good, it's so many cool people and such a cool idea. And so many people love the universe that it's got to be fun every time to go back.
Yeah, it is. I mean, see, I can't give any spoilers away. I mean,
no.
This last one was a slightly different experience, but I mean, every single one of them is a completely different experience, particularly for my character, because kind of what the journey that my character has taken through the 4 movies has been so unique. You know, I mean, and even how much. I remember the first film I shot for one day. I just stood behind it. I stood behind the desk from morning till 10 at night.
Yeah, straight concierge business.
Yeah. And then the second one I worked for, 2.5 weeks, and then the third one I worked for 2.5 months. So, yeah.
Yeah, always great to see a character grow like that. Is Absolutely. It enjoyable? I mean, it's got to be enjoyable working with guys, Keanu and Ian McShane. Now you got Bill Skarsgård in the fourth one. Where did you have any experience with a lot of these actors previous to the John Wick franchise?
Never. I was just a fan. I mean, I'd never. I mean, before the first film, I'd never met Keanu. I didn't meet Ian until the second film. I think it was my last day of shooting. Oh, no. It was my first day of shooting. I keep thinking it was my last day of shooting because it was the last scene of the movie.
Right.
And that was the only scene that I had with him. So I didn't really start to as integral as the relationship between Sharon and Ian's character is to the story of the films. It's kind of amazing that we didn't really start working together a lot until the third one.
Right. And it's funny you bring up the relationships, because there is something deeper and more underlying, I think, with Ian McShane and Keanu's characters. There's the kind of an understanding that, especially the first one, this was just a guy who wanted to live a normal life, and these guys came and fucked with his dog, and now he's and now everything has gone to hell again. And but your character Sharon too is. You also seem to have that connection with John, where you seem to understand where he's coming from, and that you look out for him, you look out for the dog, and I think that's something. Those relationships you don't always find in action films. They don't always go deep like that.
Yeah, especially not between guys who are all part of that world.
Right.
So it's so interesting because there's almost this Alfred and Batman's quality to Sharon that I think is really cool.
Right.
For me, it was one of those things where one of the main reasons I want to do it, aside from the fact that the script was just so incredibly well written, was the fact that I spent so much of my career, especially before that, for let's say the 10 years before that, just playing authority figures that talked a lot.
Yep.
So to play this kind of really taciturn, quintessential,
foreboding.
This is a way to play the expressions.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a question. I believe I follow you on Facebook and a couple of things. I believe you're a big video game guy, right? Aren't you a big quasi video game guy?
You mean in terms of
playing?
Well, it's interesting. The only game that I really play a lot is Destiny.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to ask you, John Wick has a video game and you're in it. So I was going to ask you, was that surreal being a video game, like knowing you're a video game character, being having
you've done a lot of video game VO too.
Yep. Yeah. And it's funny you brought up the John Wick video game because I keep forgetting I did
that. So you're busy. That's good.
Well, no, not only that, but it wasn't like one of these blockbuster games that I've done, like Destiny or Horizon Zero Dawn. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So, and I mean, I'm finishing up another one and then I'm about to do. I'm finishing up the voiceover of another one, and I'm about to do another one next week, and I have to go to Finland to do it because it's some live action. And unfortunately, both of them I can't talk about until they're announced. Yeah.
So let's go back. You're a Baltimore guy.
Yeah.
Born, yeah. And I was reading up on, you had a lot of training, musical theory. Was the arts always in the cards for you? Was that from day one? Was there any other?
Yes,
you know what I mean?
I mean, because it was one of those things. I mean, I started taking piano lessons when I was 6 years old, because my mother was an instrumental music teacher, and so in the Baltimore public city school system. So I would sit at the piano when I was like 4 or 5 years old and just bang on it, pretending I was playing. And my mother I
do that now.
So my mother just got sick of me doing that. She said, "No, don't do that anymore. No, you drive me crazy. If you wanna play the piano, you have to take the lessons." So I'm 6. I'm like, it's just something else to do. So I'm like, sure. So I started going to taking piano lessons when I was 6, and I just ended up kind of doing it all through high school, and then I started. I was addicted to pop music, and when I was a kid, I mean, I'm dating myself, but
who are your guys? Who are your peeps?
It was the Partridge Family. I just wanted to be big.
Sure.
I started writing songs when I was 7 years old, and then just because I was studying classical music, I started dabbling with writing classical music, and eventually. In junior high school, I started studying music theory, and then in high school, I started going to music camp that was really geared toward music theory and composition. So there was a part of me that always thought that I would do that, but I also, even though I didn't like to read and I didn't like to study, but for some reason I had an affinity for math. So when I went to college, I was a physics major. It's so funny because
wow,
all the people in my calculus class from high school they're all professors or engineers.
Right.
Wow.
So where'd the switch come to acting?
So it's really wild. So I did a play my senior year in high school.
Yeah.
And
do you remember what it was?
It was Fiorello.
Okay.
And
I just nodded like I knew exactly what that was. Yes, sure. One of my favorites.
It's a favorite musical. It's like one of those musicals from the 40s about Fiorello LaGuardia, the famous.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm 10 minutes away from LaGuardia. That much I do know.
The last scene's at an airport.
But anyway, it's so funny because I gave a great audition, and then in my second audition, she gave me a direction that threw me in, and I flubbed it. And interestingly enough, one of the guy who got it was a buddy of mine who was in my calculus class and who's now a biochemistry professor. But anyway, so I kind of got the bug from that. And then when I got to college, I just started doing plays for fun. It's the only thing that I'd ever done just for fun. And then, my first year I was a physics major, and then I transferred to music school as a composition major. And so, I spent the next 4 years doing that. And then I left music school because I realized, you know what? I don't want to do this. I really want to be a rock star. I wanted to sing. So
just like the Partridges.
Yeah. So I left music school and got married straight out of school, and then my daughter was born 2 years later. And then I'm like delivering newspapers and pizzas, and I was a singing waiter. And I was like, man, and then I hurt my back, and I was like, man, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life if I don't do something else different. So I thought, well, you know what? I can sing and I can act. Let me try that. I mean, it was just crazy. So I went on a couple musical theater auditions, and then these people with real voices, they're like, fuck. So I started going to straight theater auditions, and I just slowly started getting cast. And then a year later, I applied to the drama school at Yale on a lark and got in.
Wow.
So at almost 30 years old, at 29 years old with a 3-year-old, I went to drama school, and it changed my life.
Yeah.
It was like a do or die moment.
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, what better motivation, than to have to support a family, and, it's with really no safety net at that point,
Yeah. I mean, and not like becoming an actor wasn't necessarily the most.
Right. But you got to make it work.
Choice. I'm feeling as a musician, let me get out of debt. Let me become an actor.
That's a sound plan. That's like stand-up comics who do auditions. That's the steady part of the business is
right
doing random commercial auditions. But then
everybody, we're here with sorry to cut you off. Just wanted to reset here with everybody. The great Lance Reddick, John Wick 4 is out March 24th in the theaters. Everybody go check it out. I can't imagine. I know people just love the franchise, so I'm sure it's going to be huge. Sean, I didn't mean to cut you off, but what'd you want to ask?
No, I was going to say, after going to drama school leads to one of the best things that's ever been created ever, which is The Wire. I don't know if you're so sick of talking about The Wire at this point. You must get
about The Wire.
Yeah,
because it's so, and this point, because remember, last year was the 20th anniversary of the premiere of The Wire.
Right. Yeah, I heard
right.
the podcast. Yeah.
And I've never seen a show quite like, I mean, for numbers where shows kind of go under the radar and then they kind of get a cult following and then they come back years later. But I've never seen a show that literally just consistently get bigger and bigger the further away you get from it. Especially a show that was so, like, we almost got canceled twice. We were almost completely.
All great shows almost always is canceled. It's
yeah.
And it's such a great character. Cedric Daniel, it was such a great character arc too. You know, you're definitely one of the people I feel like you rooted for the entire way through.
I feel like he's one of the few people that actually ended up with more integrity than he started with.
Yeah, definitely. Because it all starts out. They all kind of put this little group together, and yeah, you really rose from the ashes out of that group.
Well, I feel like you kind of acted as the voice of the guys writing the show, where it's like, here's the actual truth and justice part of the scenario. Like, this is the actual, there's nobody bending this character's not bending to either side. He's trying to do the job the right way, like the ideal way the job would have been done. And you kind of you could personified that in the show, because even the guys that you rooted for, even McNulty and Dominic, all those guys, they all still like everybody. And if that's what's so great about that show. It's so realistic as far as that job goes, that even they were bending their own little rules and not being straight and narrow. But the good thing about your character was like, hey, you could always go back to a resetting or a balance with this guy, and he wasn't doing it for his own ego or cash or whatever the hell it was. That's what's so refreshing about it.
Well, see, but I disagree.
Really?
Okay. At the beginning, he was, because I feel like the moral compass at the beginning was McNulty, and then by the end it was Daniels.
That is true.
At the beginning, Daniels was he was all about by the rules.
Yeah.
The problem that part of the lesson of the show is that the nature of the system is so corrupt that there's something not quite moral about playing by the rules either.
Right.
So because one of the, it's interesting. I was talking to David Simon we were shooting something outside one day, and we were on a long break and they were resetting cameras, and I asked him, I don't remember what I asked him that made him give me this answer, but he said, I'll never forget it. He said, fundamentally, I don't believe that systems can be reformed. I only believe that individuals can. And so I feel like the thing that you consistently see is people struggling within the rules of their own culture, whether it's the criminals or whether it's business or whether it's the police, and how it interfaces with politics, struggling with their status within the community and their own personal integrity about what's right and what's right for them.
Right. Yeah.
And you're saying as a byproduct, it's reforming the system as much as it can as a byproduct of them just their own actions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's not an accident that Daniels ends up becoming, in terms of his sense of personal integrity, the most the person with the most integrity at the end, and his choice is to leave the system. I mean, right. All things to become a public defender, from being like a top cop to becoming a public defender. I mean, that's a huge.
There's no more bosses. You're your own boss. That's that's like a running theme of the show. Fuck the bosses, the whole thing. So it makes sense for the character. But it is fun. It is interesting to see. Yeah, it's the greatest thing to hit television in the history of television.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things to come from the show, especially like this came out later on, was the meme of you looking super surprised. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Oh, when Przybylewski co-cops his father-in-law.
What was it like finding out that you were a meme? And that meme was blowing up way after the show.
I forget about that one.
No, it's a great picture. Well, because it's such a stern character to get that look of emotion there.
It's fantastic.
Because I don't know if you remember what happened in that scene, but his father-in-law basically comes in to make him leave and make him quit.
Yes.
And Przybylewski's kind of standing during the headlights because he doesn't know what to do because he doesn't want to leave.
Presbo.
But his father-in-law is a fucking colonel. And his father-in-law says to him, well, come on, move, shitbird. He looks down, and pow! My eyes were
Lance Reddick, everybody. John Wick 4 theaters March 24th. Lance, we do a thing here we call it the rapid test. We just like to ask the same question to all our guests, just get to know them a little outside of what maybe the public does. Same questions to every guest. Shawnee, if you have one, I know you're not a part of this. Lewis and I have our same questions every week. I like to know, especially as somebody who's big as into music as you are, Lance, I like to know everybody's like first concert. We know you're a big Partridge Family guy, but mine was Clapton and Elton John in like 1991 at Shea Stadium. I like to know people's like first, if you're a live music person, something, where, when, and who it was.
Believe it or not, I was in elementary school and it was at the Baltimore Civic Center and it was the Jackson 5.
Oh, what a great one.
That's a great one.
That's a fantastic one.
And then the funny thing is, except for like symphonies, the next live concert I went to was like 20 years later. It was like Sting in like 1987.
Right. I love it. Lewis, you want to go?
Yes. Lance, have you done what you consider to be your passion project? And if so, what was it?
Working on it right now, and I can't talk about it because we're just starting to pitch it.
Ooh, okay. Very nice.
Hell yeah. Well, congratulations.
That's a good sign.
Absolutely.
Very cool.
The question I would have is because you mentioned the starting the trajectory for acting, and I know we have to wrap up, but I was curious. I go on so many. Have you ever been insulted by an audition that you've gotten? Because I had to go on an audition once where in the sides it said he waddled down the aisle, and it stuck with me ever since. So I was curious, like either a hell audition where you like I'm getting out of here as soon as possible, or a role that you were like I'm not like me. For me, it'd be like taking my shirt off or something wacky like that. You ever have any moment like that for an audition? You're like, oh, this is brutal.
Shoot, something came to mind. Oh yeah. Well, I can give you the worst audition I've ever had.
Okay, perfect.
Because my worst audition and my second worst audition are very vivid in my mind. And one was for theater and the other was for television. But the worst audition is a much more interesting story. So this was about, it was about 6 months after I got out of drama school. So I was very fortunate. 2 weeks after I got out of drama school, I was cast as an understudy for the character Belize and Angels in America. So, and Jeffrey Wright was leaving the show, and he just won the Tony Award for it. So, I actually, even though I was actually understudying his replacement, I ended up learning the role watching him. So about 6 months later, they were doing a revival of not a revival. They were doing a new August Wilson play called Seven Guitars, and normally for at least at that time, you'd get theater auditions like 2 weeks in advance. Well, I got it the day before, and it was basically a 1.5-page monologue.
Wow.
So, why can't I think of his name? The legendary August Wilson director who was the Richards. He used to be the dean of the drama school at Yale. Anyway, I had auditioned for him once before, and it was a great audition. So I go to the audition, and I'm on the subway. And I get off the subway, and as I'm getting off the subway to head to the audition, I hear this person behind me go, Lance! And I turn around, and it's Jeffrey Wright.
Oh, wow.
He just won the Tony. He said, hey, man, what you doing? I said, I've got this audition. He said, oh, for Seven Guitars? I said, yeah. He said, oh, me too. Let's walk together. I'm like, So we get there, and I and he's talking the whole time. So I sit down, I'm trying to calm myself, and then Keith David walks in the room.
Oh, wow.
Sure.
And Jeffrey's like, "Oh, Keith, hey man, sorry to call you back, blah, blah, blah." Keith off a plane, I just got the script. So then Keith sits down right next to me, and he's got the script open. And I can see from what he's got open that he's reading for the same role I am.
Yeah.
And then he leans in real close to me, says, "I can't do it because I don't have a voice like that." Because,
right. Who does?
He says, "So what part you reading for?"
That's pretty good, Keith David.
And well, came out, and he goes, "Uh-huh." And then he leans back. As soon as he leans back, the door opens, and the casting director says, "Lance, we're ready for you."
Oh my God.
So I walk in, I sit down. Lloyd Richards is the name of the director. Lloyd says to me, "Good to see you, young man. Feel free to use the room." So I sit down, and I'm sitting with my legs crossed in a T shape. And I'm looking down, and I'm trying to calm myself, and I look and I realize that my fly is open.
Just to put the cherry on top.
Yeah, of course. And none of the other actors told you.
I literally just sat there and read it. And then I got up, and Meg says, "Well, Les, thank you for coming on such short notice." And she rushed me out of the room. I didn't hear from her again for like another 2 or 3 years. It was awful. It was awful.
Didn't they know you were in Fiorello? Come on.
And you know what? That show, it's funny because Keith ended up the role of the lead was actually written for Charles Dutton, and for some reason he had to drop out. So Keith David actually ended up playing the lead.
Oh wow!
All these stories are so crazy.
Yeah, and that was actually Viola Davis's first Tony Award.
Wow, wow,
that's badass.
Look at that, people. Well, Lance, we know you got to get going. I know you have a busy day, but we're all such tremendous fans. It's so great. John Wick 4, it's fantastic. I saw it the other day. Everybody go see it, March 24th. Really a pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
No problem. Continued success.
Thanks, Lance.
Everybody, this is the Raw Report. I'm going to be in Stamford, Connecticut this weekend. Shawnee, I know you've got some more plugs for us. You have a show tomorrow.
Yes, I have a show on Raw Dog. It's going to be my Irish ass introducing all the serious XM Irish comedians. So you can check that out. And if you check my social media at Shawnee Time, I'll give you a rundown and all the information about the show.
Fantastic. Lewis?
Just Lewis Johnson on Instagram. That's all.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Guys, we're the Raw Report. We're here every Thursday at 4 p.m. on Sirius XM Raw Dog 99. Thank you again to Lance Reddick. Wonderful conversation. We'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Great to meet you, man.
Thanks a lot, Lance.
Thank you so much,
Claire.
Lance.
Thanks so much.
Really cool. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. My name is Andrew Fiore. You are listening to the Raw Report. Thank you so much to Adam Richmond in the first segment. What a fun guy. I enjoy his conversation. He's such a smart dude. He knows so much about the history of food, America. It's fantastic. Anyway, I am back. Anyway, we are back. We have more show, and I am very excited. I have a wonderful guest right now, so I needed to get Lewis Johnson, our super producer, back in the mix. And, of course, I needed to invite maybe the biggest Wire fan of them all, Mr. Sean Donnelly, everybody. Welcome to the show, Shawnee. Hello? Hey, man.